Hey girl, hey! Today we're talking about vulnerability, and I guess we gotta be vulnerable to do that. So,
I mean, I guess so. I guess, honestly, y'all, when we talked about doing vulnerability, I was like, psh, I can do that. I don't have problems with being vulnerable. Let me open up my little notebook here and the Bible, and he said, oh, yeah, you do. You have a problem with being vulnerable. And so I'm ready for this chapter. Let's do it.
I will say, and I think we talked about this the other day, with us doing these videos, it was either you said it or I said it, I can't remember.
Remind me, I don't know.
We said how we thought we thought we knew what vulnerability was until it came time to actually put these videos out into the big world of social media. And then it's like, oh my gosh, people can critique us, they can criticize us. Did you see how my hair looked in a ponytail? I did not like it.
She's cute in a ponytail, like stop. But yes, I do feel better now, because before I dove into this, like I said, I felt confident that wasn't my issue. And I was like, okay, well, let me just go and look up the definition of vulnerability. And I found when you're vulnerable, you're capable of being physically or emotionally wounded, open to attack or criticism. And that's not me. I don't want to be physically or emotionally wounded.
Not fun.
I'm not open to attack or to be critiqued. I mean, it depends on who's critiquing me and at what point in time I'm being critiqued. Like if Harold and I are having some type of discussion and he's like, well, honestly, you approach this wrong. Back up. I'm not trying to hear that right now.
No boo.
I gotta be in a place to receive it. And that's not being vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, and I thought I had this down pat. I've always struggled with vulnerability. Always. I've always had like a lot of big fear and control and all the things. And I thought, you know what? Once I started leading the life group, I thought, oh, I got this down. Like I can be vulnerable with people that I don't know. And then also with my friends, and that's something I always struggled with, just letting people in to like struggles or issues or anything that's going on in my life. And I feel like this was a whole nother realm of vulnerability, because I'm like, okay, this is reaching a lot more people, but I feel like there's such freedom in it, even though it's nerve-wracking.
Right.
But I definitely feel good. Recharged after it. Also, what I learned in kind of putting together some things about vulnerability is I expect everybody around me to be vulnerable. Like if you're my friends, like I expect y'all to want to be vulnerable with me. And like I want that, I appreciate that. And then when I turn around and it's time for me to do it, it's a problem. Like it's hard for me to do it. Even after we've been friends for as long as we have been, the things that you guys have prayed with me through, I can remember like a text message maybe a couple weeks ago, and Stephanie was like, why didn't you tell us that you needed prayer in this area? Are you having a problem with being vulnerable? And I'm like,
that's our next topic. That's what we're talking about.
I'm just not always ready for people to see me in that realm. I mean, like, anybody, honestly. I don't completely trust myself or anyone to just see the complete raw version of me. Like this, the bare bones, like, for the most part, if you know me, I'm usually very hyper all the time. And then I'm like, where do my kids get this from? Anyways, but I'm usually very hyper. I'm usually very bubbly. But I'm not always that way. Like there's things that I get very emotional about. Like when it comes to things that I'm experiencing with my children. Like Steph is here and she has all this training, but it took forever for me to tell her, like, I kind of think that one of my children are having some learning issues and I'm recognizing this. Like it took me forever to get there, but here I am. I mean, it even took me a long time to tell Harold that I was feeling this way, because I was torn. I was feeling like it was on me, for one, and then to have to say it out loud to somebody, like, what if you said it was on my fault? What if that was the reaction that I was given, or I was emotionally wounded or critiqued in my parenting instead of just being helped and loved the way that you guys did that, you know? So.
Yeah, I think that's being vulnerable. That's where fear sets in. Like for me, just fear of judgment. And then control, just like I want to control the situation, and I always wanted to look a certain way. Like, I've got to look like I'm put together. Like, I can't let other people know that I don't have it all together. You know,
have it all together?
I mean, pretty close. I'm like on the borderline of perfect.
Right. I think what I love about vulnerability, though, is like once you step past it, like once you just like step into the unknown and like step into that emotional exposure with the people that you trust, it's like it creates connection. Like
it does.
For real. For real. Like I feel so much closer to you guys for us being in those areas and allowing God to use y'all as blessings. Like y'all are a blessing to me and to my family, and you're a gift, and me showing you the raw, real Candace just makes me so much closer to you guys, you know? So yeah, that connection is real.
it makes you feel like you're not alone in your struggles, because like maybe there's something that somebody else is dealing with that they haven't come out with yet, that when you share what you're going through at home, they're like, oh my gosh, me too.
Yeah.
Like I thought I was the only one that felt that way, or I thought I was the only one this was happening to. And it's like you realize that we're all in it together.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes we put vulnerability with weakness, and really it is not being weak.
Yeah.
You know, like it's actually just being real, and that we are all going through the struggles. And so it's like, it's okay to be weak. Like we're actually supposed to, you know, with 2 Corinthians, it says 12:9, it says, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. And so it's like in those places of vulnerability, he can actually shine through us to others.
Yeah.
And I never realized until I started being more vulnerable, even with strangers, and I felt crazy, y'all. Crazy. Like, I might be, you know, sometimes crazy. But, and just how much it ministered to other people. And I just was really surprised with that, because I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm helping people through my struggles and my weakness, that he's actually seeing, like, okay, you can come out of this, you know, like whatever struggle it is, or, I don't know, it just kind of spoke volume to me.
Yeah. You saying that makes me think of, like, when I think of, like, examples in the Bible of people being vulnerable, I think of, like Jesus was vulnerable. Like, Jesus was vulnerable to the point of death on the cross.
Yeah.
And so that's, like, he lived it, he walked it out before us.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
So I have a question.
Okay.
Because I feel like the last time this subject came up with a group of women I was talking to, none of them wanted to talk about it. Like, everyone was like, I hate vulnerability. I hate it. And I feel like that's a reaction I get a lot from people, is they hate vulnerability. So my question is, like, do you equate vulnerability with trust, with trusting people? Like, do you feel like...
I will say that I do. And it comes, like I told you, it comes from fear of judgment. Maybe not trust, but fear of judgment. Because I don't have to trust you to be vulnerable, but I do have to feel like when I be real with you, you're not going to judge me or think less than of me or critique me or hurt my feelings. Like when I feel that we're on the same imperfect field, then I'm just more susceptible to being vulnerable. So yeah.
Now, do you think that you can be vulnerable with Jesus? Like, do you feel like that you're able to be vulnerable with him? Like, for me, I felt like at times it's like I still had to act like I had it together. And even though he knows all the things, like he knows what's going through my mind, what's going through my heart, and that I still had to pretend I didn't have the weaknesses because of fear.
Right.
Of me not being maybe not a good enough Christian, or that, well, I'm not doing my part, you know, and I just feel like...
I can say there was a point in my walk that I felt like that, and in that place, it stifled my walk. Like I felt that I had to be like, okay, your girl done messed up again. Let me back up.
My bad.
Fix this again before I come to you. You know, and I noticed that cycle that I was going through. And there was a year when I started this whole my word for the year, my word for that year was different. And it was that song by Micah Tyler, I really think that's his name, where it talks about wanting to be different, wanting to be changed, and wanting the world to look and see God through him. That year, I was like, I'm going to start breaking the cycle. And I just had to start being real with him because, for one, he already knew.
He knows it all. Yeah, it's like he knows all that we probably don't even know.
Right. He knows all the things. So I would just find myself, okay, yeah, so I did that 3 minutes ago, and I just talked to you and prayed about this morning, about not going down this trail again, and I did it again. And I'm back thanking you for your grace and your mercy. And can I just get past this again? Like, and I just tell them, I don't understand why this is being so hard on me. I don't understand why it's hard for me to shake this. I don't understand why it's hard for me to trust you in this spot or let this control go in this spot. Like, I don't understand why it's happening. And then I've gotten to the place where I'm like, the only way I can get to the root of it is pouring myself into him to understand. And he reveals all those things to you. Like, he'll be like, oh, because you're controlling. Oh, because you don't trust me. And so
I just love how he runs to our mess. Like, he's not going to run away from us. Like, that's kind of like with vulnerability. I feel like if I'm vulnerable with some people, that they may run away.
yes,
They're like, peace, I'm out, you crazy, get some help. You know? I'll pray for you. Lunch, okay, maybe sometime,
Call me in my morning.
Yeah, just text me and we'll get something together. But I just feel like he never runs away. Like, he is constantly pursuing us and constantly coming to our weaknesses. And I love that now. I was at a place that I did not like that. And I was like, can I just let it be easy? Can it just be easy and smooth and just have peace all the time, And I just realized there is peace when we run to him instead of run away from him.
But there's actually a piece about this whole vulnerability thing that I feel saved my marriage. People say it all the time, marriage is so hard. And you're like, before you get married, I know this is just going to be so hard. I just know it. But me and Harold, we're just going to ace that thing. We got it. I mean, it'd be hard for you, but it'd be kind of hard for us. Then we got in that thing. And I was like, oh, so they mean it. Like, it's hard. Like, it's real hard. Like, expert level hard.
It's a lot of work.
Yes. And joining a life group and being in a life group where people were just straight vulnerable and just real and raw is when we both were like, we're not broken by ourselves. Like, they're broken too. And they're broken and they're broken. And not in a place of like, oh, we're judging them, but in a place where we found hope that it's just something that Harold and I cannot try to do this marriage thing by ourselves. Like, we had to give it to God. And that's the things that we were all walking through that together. We weren't sitting there thinking that we were the people who were on expert level. And, when you have to kill that thing or all your lives are going to go away. We were about there. We had one life left. And we had to jump on Bowser's head or all our lives were going to go away. And I feel like that life group just revived us right then and there and just gave us so much just hope in him and hope in knowing that I got you, so and just by people being vulnerable. And those people probably would never even know that them sharing what they had been through saved us. So,
which we all met in life group.
We did.
We were in the same life group.
Yeah.
And
Ignite.
And I really thank God for that. Like, I was thinking about that the other day, and I was just thanking him so much for the fact that he surrounds us with the people we need in our life at the right moment.
Yeah.
And I would have never thought for our first meeting that we'd be doing something like this together.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed by his handiwork. Like, he is so good. He knows just how to weave the right people in. Even people that we may think, oh, like she's kind of weird. Like, I don't know if we can be friends. You know,
which one of us you think is weird?
I'm not, nobody thought I was weird. I mean, I'm a little bit weird, not too weird. But I just love how he, you know, has that community come around us.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, because I feel like it's so important for that community. But yet we have to be vulnerable in that community that he provides for us too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of the author Brene Brown. She's an author that I have read a lot of her books. I've listened to a lot of her TED Talks. But she studies shame and vulnerability. And the one thing that she talks about is how wholeheartedness is the capacity and willingness to be vulnerable. And with that, like with living in community, that's like the key for like connection with each other. It's just living in like wholeheartedness. Is that a word?
Yeah. Yeah,
Today?
it is.
I think it is though, because you say
It's a
wholeheartedly.
word.
Done. If it wasn't a word today, it's a word now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I think there was a point in my life that I was not living in community. I felt all alone. And I realized once I developed this community how important it was. And I guess that's part of what I developed was wholeheartedness. And I know that we're not called to stand on our own.
Yeah.
And so like Ecclesiastes 4:12 really spoke volume to me. A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken.
And the enemy wants to keep us alone. Like he
Yeah.
wants to seclude us. He does not want us together. So
I mean, because think about the times that we're calling each other or doing our Facebook Messenger with the weird faces and stuff like that. When you have to convince me, especially, those are lies that the enemy's telling you.
Yeah.
He's wanting you to feel fearful. He's wanting you to be discouraged right now. If I didn't have community, what am I going to do? Who's going to talk me out of those things? You know, and yes, I do have my husband, but there's some things that I want to always go to him for, like weight him down with all the women things that go on in my head, that sometimes he's just going to look at me like, I am not going to say he would look at me. I'm going to say, for when he does look at me, he's like, you're just so dramatic.
It's like they can't relate.
They just
can't.
can't.
Like they can't.
You know,
Yeah.
and I need my girls to just be able to just yank me back to reality.
yeah.
You know?
Speaking of, do you remember the driveway prayer when you guys sat in my driveway? But I do have to say that night before you guys showed up in my driveway, we had gone to dinner with a group of other women from our church, and I think that one thing that I have struggled with since moving to Arkansas is just this feeling, and a lie that I've struggled with is like the feeling that I don't belong, and like in groups of people, and just trying to make friends and get involved in a church, just this constant feeling of like, why am I not fitting in here? I don't talk like you guys. I'm not from here. Like, I'm a Yankee, you're a Rebel.
I mean, because you did just say you guys instead of y'all.
Yeah, exactly. See? Why am I so different? But that night after having dinner with this group of women who I just felt so different from, I went home and I just kind of felt like just defeated in myself. And just kind of like, I'm just going to go to bed because I just feel like I just wasn't feeling the connection, and I was just feeling like I didn't belong. And I think it was you that called me, and you're really good at like...
At like 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm really weird at being awkward.
Yes. And you're like...
Is she?
No, not that you're good at being awkward, but you're like really good at like just pulling things out of us. Or like making us talk.
Yeah.
And so you called and you're like, so what's going on? And I don't think I even told you then, but
No, we just know.
oh, you showed up.
Right
You
now.
said, no, that's it. You said, we've been wanting to pray about Hey Girl Heyy, so we're coming to your house right now. And it was 10 o'clock at night.
10:30.
Yeah.
10:30.
Yeah.
And I remember I was in my pajamas. I just put a sweatshirt on and just opened my garage door and walked out. But that sitting in your van and praying with you guys, and
She was actually sitting in the car seat.
yeah, she was sitting in the car seat in the back. I had to dust my booty.
You gotta dust the booty. You gotta be in my van, you gotta dust your booty. Because my
Just
kids
so
live.
you know. Just so you know.
They're living.
It was such a reminder to me of like just what real community is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And just the power that being vulnerable has. Like when I share with you a lie or struggle I'm having, and you say, like, you speak into that lie into my life, and then we all sit there and pray, like, that is what community is supposed to look like, that God created. That's what he intended it for. And like, we were created for it. We were created to live in connection with each other.
That's so true. So true.
And how many times do we, like if we're going through something or we're struggling, how many times do we have these thoughts of, oh, I just don't want to burden them with that. Like they don't want to hear that again.
They're tired of hearing
They're
this.
tired of hearing the same old thing. Here I am struggling with this again, you know.
So what, with you saying that, what are some of the lies that you hear, that we hear all the time? They don't want to hear this anymore. They're going to judge me. They don't experience this stuff that I experience. What else could we
They don't want me around. I'm not cut out for this.
I don't fit in.
I don't fit in.
I don't say y'all.
People are going to think you're crazy if you start talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
People might think you're crazy if you show up in their driveway.
One thing.
She might still think I'm crazy though.
Yeah, she is
Just
kind
a
of-
little bit.
Crazy's fun, right?
One thing that I know keeps me, like a lie that I hear a lot, is that I don't want to be a Bible reader. Like I love Jesus so much, and I know that he is the answer. He is the way. He is the truth. He is the life. I know that, and I just want to tell everybody.
Yeah.
But I don't. I stifle it because I am afraid of being labeled a Bible reader. Do y'all remember that song? This little light of mine.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just put the little bushel over my light, and I shouldn't. We should just let it shine.
Well, I just think that the enemy wants to keep us from spreading the goodness that God has for us and the like how he's worked through our weaknesses. And so I mean, I feel like that in our flesh just kind of is like, ooh, that pride and that control and that fear just kind of bulls up in us that we just kind of give into that sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think pushing through that and like not worrying about all those things. And even if people think you're crazy, even if they're like tired of hearing about the same old story, you know, it doesn't matter. Like what matters is what God says about us. Like who we know, who we are in Christ is what matters, really. And yeah, we might get tired of hearing something, or we might, you know, are like, oh, pray for her again, you know, or something like that. Not that I've ever said that. I haven't. No, I haven't. I'm just thinking of other people. Like these are thoughts that I've had about other people, or probably thinking that about myself. And so I'm just like, you know, like I need community right now. Like I need these prayers. I need
my
someone
people.
to come in and like reach out and get me out of this pit, you know?
Yeah.
But you got to be in a vulnerable place to ask for it.
Right.
But you even have to be in a more vulnerable place to accept it. Like, because sometimes you have friends like us who are just going to push ourselves on you when you don't ask for it. But you almost have to be just as vulnerable to accept that love and to be embraced in that time and to be pushed.
And it's weird at first. It feels, I mean, for me, it felt weird. Like, because I'm not used to being vulnerable. I mean, I was told my whole life, like, I mean, life is tough. Like, you just have to suck at that buttercup and keep on going.
Yeah.
You know, like, don't be talking about your problems.
Oh, no,
Don't,
none of that.
You know, all those things. And so it's like you have to, like, I had to retrain my brain and recondition my heart to be like, this is okay. Like, and I still do sometimes.
So freeing. It is so freeing to take off that fake armor, like that facade that you feel that you have to have on, and that smudge proof, like.
Well, what's the saying? Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
That is so untrue. Like,
you
I'm
ain't
like,
gonna
I
make
hate that phrase. Like, I'm just like, no, you don't fake it till you make it. Like, you reach out, you get your community, like, pull your sisters in, you know, have them pray for you. Like, you can't be faking it. Like, that's tiring.
And ain't nobody got time for that.
No.
Ain't nobody.
No. Well, and so when we're talking about like confessing our sins or our weaknesses or anything like that, like James 5:16 kind of spoke to me. It's like, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The earnest prayer of a righteous person has great power and produces wonderful results. So, I mean, you're going to hear me say all the time, like, did you pray about it?
All the time.
I mean, like broken record style.
For real. Like if
Because-
you could chop and screw it.
Like I could tell you ahead of time before I even call her what she's gonna say.
I know what Stephanie's gonna say.
Have you prayed about it?
Because
Have
y'all,
you prayed about
I went through seasons, all these seasons of all these things that I've been growing through, of trying to do it on my own, trying to have control and having that fear and that pride and all the things that held me down. And I was not seeking the Lord. I was not praying about anything. Like, I was just felt just in my feelings, like I'm my husband's Holy Spirit, or I'm not, you know, like I feel like I went through that season of that struggle bus, and I catch myself doing it now too. So I'm not like all fixed and holy or anything, but I just know that when I started praying about things, and I also had to change the way I prayed about it. Like, pray the Lord's will, not mine, even though I think I'm right sometimes. I had to pray the Lord's will over that person's heart or over that situation, or, you know, even if I thought of a better way to fix that situation or control that situation, like I had to change those prayers. And when I started doing that, y'all, I'm telling you, like, I have seen changes in my family, changes in myself. Like, it can only be done by God. Only. I mean,
His way.
it's powerful. Like, and that's why I'm always like, did you pray about it? Because prayer is so huge. And I just think about myself when I like isolated myself. I didn't have community to pray for me. Like, I wasn't even praying. It was a very dark and lonely place.
And you weren't being vulnerable in that spot.
And I was not being vulnerable. My pride, which I thought I didn't have an issue with, found out, yes, I do. You know, I had issues with pride and control and my feelings. Like, I was just, controlled by my feelings. I mean, and it was just a miserable season. And so I just catch myself like, okay, you gotta pray about it. Remember how you prayed. Like, I have to remind myself, because it's almost like we get spiritual amnesia or something, like we forget. I think you used that term.
You said that
last time. I'm like, yes, it's spiritual amnesia. Like, why do I keep forgetting this?
Yeah.
And so, so you'll hear me several times.
Several times.
Pray about it.
Pray about it.
Have you
Did
prayed
pray?
about it?
Like,
Have
well,
you
how
prayed
did you
about
pray? Did you pray like a selfish prayer, or did you pray like the Lord's will?
And then sometimes I tell her, I don't want to pray.
And
I'm going to be mad.
They probably don't even call me sometimes, and they're like, I don't even want to hear her say those words. Like, please, Stephanie, stop.
I think the one thing that encourages me to be vulnerable is just knowing that, like, he meets me where I'm at. Like, if I confess to God, like, this is where I'm at, this is what I've done, and acknowledge, like, my imperfectness, he steps in and meets me. Like, his grace covers all.
Okay.
So it's like, God, I need you, because, like, this is the story that I have to work with. And just kind of, like, owning up to it. Like, this is my story. I feel like it welcomes the Lord in to then step in and work with me.
Because you're giving him space to work. When we're thinking that we're just perfect and have it all together, there's no space for him to be him.
Or when we have to feel like we have to make it look like we have it all together to everyone else.
And I almost feel like vulnerability is almost like surrender. You know, like, I mean, it's almost like, okay, here I am, an open book. Like, I'm surrendering. Like, I mean, you're having to open your heart up when you are vulnerable. And it's like you're surrendering to the Lord of like, okay, use me in this. That's kind of how I felt.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't want to be sharing my dirty laundry to anybody, you know? Like, that's scary. So I feel like, and also for me, like, I don't know if y'all feel this way too, like, vulnerability surrender and obedience. I feel like that all kind of went hand in hand for me. Like I felt like I felt the Lord nudging me to like share my story or some things that I've gone through, just so that people through my vulnerability, they can see my weakness and they can see how God helped me through it.
Right.
And there's a lot of times I didn't want to be obedient in that because I have fear of being vulnerable and like all the things that would just stir up in me. So I feel like just being vulnerable is being obedient in a way too.
And you have to surrender all that to find strength in Him.
Yeah.
Because being vulnerable may be something that you're like, I just don't know if I can do it. You just have to, in those areas, like just be real with God and just be like, can you guide me? Can you help me? He's so ready to just take your hand and just walk you through it. He just loves us so, so, so very much. And so, girls, we love you guys. If there's anything that we can be praying with you for about vulnerability, about still struggling to be obedient, anything, anything, we would just love to be praying with you ladies.
Yes.
We love you so much. We already pray for you. And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.